are Locked On Spurs, your daily San Antonio Spurs podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
It is the Spurs offseason, and although they do have a trio of first-round picks, should they be going after Deandre Ayton in the offseason? Welcome back to Locked On Spurs right here on the Locked On NBA Network. I'm your host, Jeff Garcia, Spurs writer for Kings 5, San Antonio. Glad to have you back, and we thank you for making Locked On Spurs your first listen each and every day, and we are free and available wherever you get podcasts. This episode of Locked On Spurs is brought to you by Bet Online. Basically, BetOnline has you covered this season for more props, odds, and lines than ever before. BetOnline, where the game starts. Yeah, the Spurs definitely will be looking to make some roster changes next season, either via the draft or free agency. And right now, we're going to be talking about Deandre Ayton. Vegas has the Spurs pegged with the third best odds at landing the restricted free agent. He definitely could address the Spurs' need for more depth at the big man spot, but should he be the Spurs' target? Should they address that in the draft? And maybe there's another free agent out there that the Spurs can look at. To help me do this and much, much more, I am joined by James Pledger of San Antonio Sports Star and co-host of the Saturday Morning Hangover. James, can I just clear the air with you first? Can I just do that? Get this out of the way first?
Clear the air? What's up?
Well, I know you were supposed to come on Locked On Spurs last week, like towards the end. But Jimenez came on. Now, mind you, this is like right after the Spurs were announced with number 9. It looked like we had a lot of miscommunication there because I thought we were doing you a favor by taking something off your to-do list the next day. So, James, my apologies.
Oh, no, I assumed Jimenez would pull Jimenez and was like, They only got the 9th pick. They didn't move up to 4. I need to get this off my chest now. Jeff, I want to be on Locked On Spurs.
Well, you know what? That did happen. He called me the moment the 9th pick was announced to San Antonio, and within minutes, I get a phone call from him. Are you doing Locked On Spurs right now? I'm like, no, I'm not doing it until tomorrow. Oh, okay. Well, why? Why? He had to know why because he had to get some off his chest. I said, well, James is going to come on tomorrow, 10:30. Oh, okay. Well, I didn't do Locked On Spurs immediately afterwards because I had a bunch of stuff to do with the Locked On network. Well, that cleared up pretty fast. I thought it was going to be an all-night thing. And I was like, oh, okay, well, James is still up. Jimenez is still up, obviously. Let's see if all 3 of us can bang this out. I didn't know Mr. Pledger had a heavy schedule the next day. So James is all like, no, go ahead and do it. Go ahead and do it. Help me. I'm helping you by helping me kind of thing. And then Jimenez, obviously, he must have been gloating about it the next day because I jumped on halftime and I got skewered for that. But we are making James, and by the way, you have an open invite. You don't have to schedule anything with me. I could be mid show with somebody else and you could just hop on if you wanted to. But
I'm aware. I find it very funny because I knew exactly probably what happened in my mind, and Jimenez was so distraught about not moving up that he had to vent immediately.
Well, hey, moving up in the draft is still on the table, and let's go ahead and dive right into today's topic, and that is the Spurs, DeAndre Ayton, and the draft. Let's start off with the big man himself, the Phoenix Suns center. He is a restricted free agent. As mentioned earlier, Las Vegas has the Spurs pegged with the third best odds of landing him, 3-1 odds. So Vegas feels like there might be something there behind the Pistons and I believe the Magic. But you can eliminate the Magic because they ended up with the number 1 pick at we're just going to guess what Vegas might do. They may bump up to the Spurs with the second best odds, but we've been talking about this ahead of this show, and you're kind of on the fence with Ayton. Why is that?
I like him. I don't love him. And my co-host on the Saturday Morning Hangover, Jack Thompson, loves the idea of bringing DeAndre Ayton on. But for me, when I see DeAndre Ayton play, it's good, but there's a lot to be desired. And I look at it in terms of he's playing with an all-time great point guard who can put him in positions to get kind of easy baskets. I don't see him dominate. I don't see him kind of enforce his will or whatever you would be looking for out of the player that you were about to give max money to. And I'm wondering if you're just getting a bigger, more versatile version of basically Jakob Poeltl when you look at Deandre Ayton. And that's one of my fears. The other is what I saw in Game 7 of the Western Conference semis between the Suns and Mavericks, in which Phoenix as a whole came out flat, but DeAndre Ayton was also not great in that game, and on top of it, looked to have quit visibly, and so much so that Monty Williams yanks him out of the game 17 minutes in, and he never sees the floor again. Monty Williams is a really easy dude to get along with by all accounts. So to get in his bad side must be difficult, and this has to be something that was lingering. This wasn't like a one-off Game 7 only. This is something where Monty had finally had enough. And so I wonder, if you can get on Monty's bad side about effort, especially on the defensive end, what do you think Pop's going to do to you? Because it doesn't take as much to get on his bad side and end up on the defensive doghouse and then out of the rotation.
Yeah. And mind you, this was a Game 7. I mean, he did it in a Game 7. So whatever Ayton did, and at least according to Monty Williams, he said it's an internal issue. It must have been pretty bad, for a winner take all game and to bench your on for the Suns roster, your best man in the middle for the rest of the game. Yeah, that's big. And here's the other thing too that makes me a little leery about Ayton is that he's gonna want max money.
Yes.
I don't know if the Spurs should give Ayton max money. When I think max money, I think of that player that's gonna vault the team. Really put him in contention, really push him deep in a playoff run or move them up that power board in the NBA. Ayton doesn't do that for me. Pleasure.
No. When I think max money, I think about a guy that carries a franchise. I don't know, and that's one of the beautiful things about Daryl Morey is through analytics, he saw that, James Harden, if you extended down his minutes and extrapolated everything, that he could be a franchise-type guy that you would give max money to. And he bet on it, and he bet right. And he was just the sixth man in Oklahoma City. So that was brilliant foresight by Daryl Morey at that point. So you have to take what you see from players and try and extrapolate it out. When I think max money, I don't see DeAndre Ayton being that guy, mainly because the type of basketball that he plays, it's not NBA basketball anymore in terms of the modern day. I mean, he doesn't space the floor well enough. He can, pick and roll, but most of those bigs are, 10 to 15 mil a year bigs. They all serve their purpose and they have a point, but they're not max guys. Max guys, especially from that position, do so much more right now. Joel Embiid, Giannis Antetokounmpo, Nikola Jokic, these are guys that do so much more and space the floor and can shoot the three. Anthony Davis is another one that comes to mind. I don't think of DeAndre Ayton in that vein.
No.
I don't see him in that vein. And that's a very difficult thing to have to commit that much money and salary to. I think of a guy of a max contract, and I start thinking, Zach LaVine, a dude that can go get me 30 a night.
Yeah. And we saw that last season where DeJounte Murray, needed help. And at least not right now, on the roster, there wasn't a guy that can give him that help, that 20 or more consistent score. Keldon came on late, being able to do that. He did have quite of a string of 20 plus points, but that was really late in the season. So you hope that next jump for him will be that consistency starting next season. But as of right now, no, there is not that paired player for DeJounte. I already saw DeJounte low-key recruiting Zach LaVine earlier this season or in the offseason. We're here with James Pleasure. No, I don't think it was low key, but I had to put it nicely there.
But
We're here with James
I will
Pledger.
say
He
this
is
about DeAndre Ayton, though. When I look at DeAndre Ayton and you look at this team, could he be a piece that helps propel them? Absolutely. If you were to take a guy like Ayton and put him in the middle, and then you're getting, 17 to 20 and 10 a night from him as a guy that can work off of and in tandem with DeJounte Murray, you have this floor spacing ability and a secondary scorer in Keldon Johnson, and then Devin Vassell maybe takes that jump. That's a pretty formidable four
it
of your
is.
starting five. And if
Yeah,
you can
and
find
and
a
it
stretch
pushes.
four at number
Yeah.
9, all of a sudden you have the makings of a team that possibly really could compete.
Yeah, he pushes Keldon to, I think, his natural spot, which is a 3. I think he'd be much more
Mm-hmm.
effective there. So it'll definitely help. But yeah, with Ayton, there's pros and cons. We're going to continue looking at those pros and cons with DeAndre Ayton, and then getting into the number 9 pick. And then Pledger has something to say about Zach LaVine. And another big that possibly could be on the Spurs short list when it comes to free agents, some guy out in Orlando. But before we do that, I want to talk to you about Sakara. Look, feeling your best starts with what you eat, and that's where Sakara comes in. Sakara helps you live a healthy, balanced lifestyle, and you truly enjoy it. It's delicious, it's plant rich, it's transformational nutrition. It builds a foundation for living your best body. Now's the time to seek wellness, joy, and abundance in all areas of your life, starting with what you eat. And that's where Sakara comes in. You get nutrient dense meals, snacks, and supplements that nourish your body without ever sacrificing taste or quality. True radiance starts in your plate, made with high quality organic ingredients. Sakara's plant rich transformational nutrition programs are expertly designed to deliver real results, from reduced bloatiness to ease of digestion to clearer skin to boosted energy and moods. Look and feel your best. And yeah, that shouldn't mean deprivation. Instead, choose joy and abundance. Sakara's organic plant rich transformational nutrition programs are designed to help you cultivate body intelligence so you can nourish your body and experience the results you want. Sakara is a wellness company anchored in food as medicine on a mission to nourish your body through the power of plants. Sakara gives you the tools you need to transform your life with their organic, ready to eat meal delivery program and functional wellness essentials. Their nutritionally designed, chef crafted breakfasts, lunch, and dinners are made with powerful plant rich ingredients, helping boost your energy, support digestion, and curb your sugar cravings to get that skin glowing. And it's delivered right to your door, ready to eat. Right now, Sakara is offering our listeners 20% off their first order when they go to sakara.com/locked-on20 or enter code locked-on20 at checkout. That's Sakara, SAKARA.com/locked-on20 to get 20% off your first order. Sakara.com/locked-on20. And we're back right here on Locked On Spurs. We're discussing DeAndre Ayton. Should the Spurs chase him or not? Look at the pros and cons of that and much, much more. But once again, thanks for making Locked On Spurs your first listen every day. Be sure to check out Locked On NBA Big Board. Host Rafael Barlow from NBA Draft Junkies and author of the NBA Big Board newsletter is joined by Richard Stayman, Sam Ferris, and Leif Thulin, giving fans an in-depth look into the NBA draft, mock draft, player rankings, and of course, Big Boards. It's free and available wherever you get podcasts. James, when I look at DeAndre Ayton, I started looking at some of his numbers. Okay, so they're not bad numbers, what he did last year. 17.2 points per game, 10.2 rebounds per game. He shot the ball about 63% from the field, 37%. Yeah, 37% from the 3 line, considering the position he plays. That's not too bad. But here's the thing, too. He only played 58 games last season.
Mm-hmm.
I look at his history. The most games he played in a season was 71 in his rookie season. He's not that durable, is he?
I don't know that he's not durable so much as, he's had injuries here and there, whether it was a wrist one year, I believe. And, but you got to remember, a lot of times people are load managing now. So you look at that 59 games or whatever it is, how many of that was due to injury? How many of that was, crafty Monty Williams using Pop's load management scheme of, it's the second night of a back-to-back and we don't want to put too much pressure on them. So those are all numbers that you have to kind of put into perspective nowadays when you look at games played. How many of it was actually injury? How much of it was load management?
Now, there's another big that could possibly be on the Spurs short list, and you
Mhm.
brought him up before we hit record. And that is a guy by the name of Mo Bamba, the
Mhm.
bouncy big that Spurs fans been clamoring for. A guy that's still young, a guy that's not terribly not seasoned. I mean, he's been in the league already,
Mhm.
so he could be a plug and play player. Maybe the Spurs should shift to Mo Bamba now with the Magic having the number one pick and possibly bringing in a big with that first pick.
Well, obviously, it's going to be a big with the first pick,
Yeah.
I believe. The first three picks are set in stone. It's just a matter of which order they're going in, I believe. So that's Franz Wagner last year, whether it's Paolo or Chet or Jabari this year. You've already got Jonathan Isaac coming back off the injury and COVID. So there are so many bigs on that roster. I don't see them splurging to keep a Mo Bamba. So that's a name that very well could become available to them to where he wouldn't cost as much as a DeAndre Ayton, obviously,
Mm-hmm.
and could fulfill that role of the athletic big that can help switch and provide some floor spacing for you. And maybe because of his injuries within the league, you get him at a cheaper bargain and bet on the upside of him reaching the potential that made him
Right.
that first round pick when they actually selected him a few years back out of the University of Texas.
And the Spurs definitely are okay with taking risk on off injured players. Look at Zach Collins. I mean, the perfect
Yeah.
example right there. They took him in on the cheap, got him, rehab, sent him to Austin for a few days, and then, got him in the San Antonio uniform. And we'll see how he pans out next season. But also, too, there's a possibility that a big man spot could be freed up because Jock Landale is on a non-guaranteed contract heading into next season. So, a lot can change with that. He could likely not
Mhm.
be in a Spurs uniform next season. He's definitely going to have to prove himself come training camp and preseason. But yeah, I mean, there's so many moving parts here, and which leads us to the number 9 pick. So the
Mhm.
Spurs, as of right now, sitting with number 9, and there's plenty of bigs that could be still on the big board. You look at Eason, you look at Jalen Duran. Uh, what about addressing that need in the draft? Or I know you've been very clear, James. You're best available guy,
I'm
but
always best available when
yeah,
it comes to the draft.
yeah,
But there's a good chance that one of the best available players could still be there at 9. And you brought up Tari Eason. I think this guy is an even better version of him. It's Jeremy Shohan out of Baylor. And this guy is 6'9", 6'10", so he fills that 4 role in terms of size. He is an incredible defender playing at Scott Drew with Baylor, and he's got a very good 3-point shot, and you can see the makings of it. And he's very versatile. He'll defend, he can put the ball on the floor. He just provides a lot, and you see the room for improvement. And he feels like kind of a Spurs guy in terms of the fact that he was born in Belgium, I believe, played overseas for a little bit. His family moved to Texas. He ends up going to Baylor, and he hasn't been playing the sport for like ever, but
mhm,
he is well versed enough. So there's that room for the growth with him, but he's already so far along and played for a very, very demanding coach in college in Scott Drew. I really like what I see out of Jeremy Shohan, and I think he would be,
mhm.
if you're looking for somebody to fill that 4 void that the Spurs lack, that would allow Keldon to slide into his more natural 3 position, I believe. Jeremy Shohan's that guy because he can defend legitimately 5 positions on the court.
Right. Now, you're looking at the other free agents available this offseason. We mentioned already Ayton. There's going to be Mo Bamba, both restricted free agents. So we'll see how that plays out, especially if the Magic want to match or not. And you got other bigs out there. You got Yusuf Nurkic, but I don't know if you want to go with that guy considering how often injured he gets. You
Mm-hmm.
got Whiteside out of Utah. You got Andre Drummond. I don't know how much value he still has left. It looks like there's going to be a lot of bigs in this this free agents too, Nas Reed, in Minnesota.
Mhm.
But it seems to me that no matter what the Spurs do, either address it in free agency, address it in the draft, it being the lack of a quality big, or in the or in, like you said, free agency, draft, or whatever it looks like they're going to have options, but
Mhm.
I look, and it feels like, I'm not trying to knock Jakob, because Jakob is good. He's good. He's a good defender. He's great.
He's a
Double
great
double
defender.
guy. He's really good defender. He's just lacking that extra bit, and that is a stretch big. The Spurs
He
don't have a
provides
stretch big.
he provides a certain aspect
Hmm.
of toughness and defensive ability. Like, he is great, but his greatness might best be utilized in shorter bursts just
Hmm.
because of the way the game is played and the times that he does get exposed, or the certain matchup. Like, there are certain matchups he's just better equipped
Yeah.
to play against than all of the matchups. And having the versatility of your lineup to be able to, all right, you're coming off the bench or you're starting, but you're going to predominantly play this amount of minutes today just because of the matchup. Like, that might just be best overall, not just for Jakob, but for the team.
Hmm. Absolutely. Before we put a wrap on this episode of Locked On Spurs, I want to talk to you about our partners at Bet Online. They continue to be the number one source for all your betting needs and sports info. They even have lines right now on not only how, Ayton might be in the San Antonio Spurs uniform, but if Pop will be back, if Becky would leave the WNBA to go back to the NBA as a head coach. It's all there at Bet Online. You can find all the latest odds and news and sports developments, including this year's basketball playoffs, Major League Baseball scores, fights, and even next season's NFL futures. BetOnline is your continued source for all your sporting wagering information, from live betting to the playoffs, esports, and more. Head to the website today. That's BetOnline. Use your mobile device. Like, you got a cell phone, you got a laptop, you got a desktop. There's so many ways for you to go to BetOnline. Do it right now. You'll learn more about the trends and action. BetOnline, where the game starts. And we are back. Going to put a wrap on this episode of Locked On Spurs. I'm joined by San Antonio Sports Star's very own James Pledger. Follow him on Twitter at @IamPledger. Let's go ahead and wind this down already, James, here, and put a bow on this topic. So, would you be mad if the Spurs were to sign Ayton? I mean, it feels like it's kind of like one of those things like, sure, why not? That's what it feels like.
I mean, that's kind of how I feel. Like,
Yeah.
why not? Like, I have other things that are in the lead, obviously, but if you ended up with Ayton this offseason, I wouldn't be diametrically opposed to it by any sense of the word.
Yeah.
I just feel like that money could be best utilized in other ways.
Mm-hmm.
Possibly maybe going and getting a Zach LaVine and
Zach
then
LaVine,
spreading
yeah.
out the money on surrounding parts, or depending what you do in the draft. And I think since the draft comes first, we'll have a better idea of what the Spurs are
Right.
doing this offseason,
Mm-hmm.
with whether they bring those 3 draft picks in, because those are 3 guaranteed contracts in the first round, or if they package 2 of them to try and move up, or what Brian Wright tries to do. I think that'll give us a big insight as to what their
Mm-hmm.
thoughts are when it comes to free agency this year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and there's so many other, I'm expecting, James, and let me get your thoughts on this, that we might be looking at a very different roster next season, or a slightly tweaked roster. What do you think this team is going?
you know, I I could see both. I
Yeah,
could
right. I can see
see
both
a
too. Yeah.
mass exodus just because of the
Yeah.
lack of guaranteed contracts on this
Uh-huh.
roster, in which they're trying to free up money to bring in maybe 2 big off-season acquisitions, and maybe Levine and Ayton. I don't know. But if they were to try and do that, that would be obviously massive, but it would
Hmm.
also mean that your draft picks are that much more important in
Right.
filling out the rest of your roster, and the surrounding, you know, mid-level exceptions and whatever you're going to have to use, lower deals to try and fill out the bottom part of your roster. Or I could see them kind of run it back as is, make
Hmm.
a signing like a Mo Bamba just to kind of give some bench depth, and also just a different version of a big, and run a few draft picks and bring them in, and all of a sudden you've just minorly tweaked the roster and you're
Right.
running back what you had. Like, I can see both of these options very clearly for this team, because
Yeah.
what's the one thing that we know that the Spurs love over almost anything else? It's continuity.
Yeah. Yeah, they love to run it back. What's that saying the Spurs fans usually use? We love the team we're with. So and that's what the Spurs have always been about. We like the team we got. But you're looking at some of the names that could possibly be gone next season from San Antonio. Lonnie Walker, he could not be in a Spurs uniform. He's a restricted free agent. We mentioned Jock
Mm-hmm.
Landale, non-guaranteed deal. Wieskamp, he's a restricted free agent. You have Jakob Pertl, who might be the biggest trade bait the Spurs have right now. He's on the final leg of his contract with San Antonio, which, by the
Mm-hmm.
way, he told Austrian media that he would love to come back to San Antonio, that he feels he has a niche there. But he saw the writing on the wall last season when teams were interested in him towards the trade deadline. So he could be gone. Zach Collins could be gone. Another expiring contract. So yeah, I
Mm-hmm.
mean this roster could look a lot different, or like James mentioned, run it back. Yeah, this team
And
has options.
you mentioned him earlier, Jock Landale. Don't forget Romeo Langford, who they acquired in the
Yep.
trade, is going into the final
Richardson.
year of his deal.
Richardson has 1 year left. Yeah.
Richardson has 1 year left. Like, this is a team full of pieces and parts that could be easily either moved or cut to free
Yep.
salary cap space.
Absolutely. Hey, we're done talking. We want to hear from you. Should the Spurs chase Ayton? He is a restricted free agent. James and I are kind of like, sure, if it happens, it happens, or whatever. But are you
Sounds
you so opposed to them not going Ayton? We need to know. James, tell everybody how they can get a hold with you and listen to you on air over there at the Star.
Oh, at the Star? Well, it starts early in the morning, Monday through Friday, with R&R in the morning. Rudy J, Rob Thompson, and myself kind of get you kicked off in the morning from 7 to 10. Then, of course, Michael Jimenez will be on halftime from noon to 2. And a lot of the times I will grace my presence on that show. And then, of course, the flagship, the Blitz, with Jason Minix and Joe Reinagle from 4 to 7. Of course, I am the producer on multiple shows, and I am the host of the Saturday Morning Hangover with Jack Thompson, who you had on just a few days ago. Jack and I kind of take different opinions on whether the Spurs should pursue Ayton or not. So it's always a good time,
Yep.
especially when we're talking about Spurs off-season stuff during the Saturday Morning Hangover, and, of course, football season coming up.
Oh, yeah.
And then you've got Sunday Sports Grill from 11 to 1 every Sunday morning.
It is packed over at the Star. There's no excuse for you to not get homegrown shows. It's there 7 days a week. I was just on yesterday with Medina and Tanner and Quinn over there at the Sunday Sports Grill. So yeah, I mean, every day there's something for you to go and listen to over there at the San Antonio Sports Star. Follow James again on Twitter at I Am Pledger. Subscribe to Locked On Spurs wherever you get your favorite podcast, Google Play, Stitchers, iTunes, and we're now on YouTube. Thanks for making those YouTube numbers get bigger and bigger each and every day. And we also thank you for making Locked On Spurs again your first listen each and every day. Now, for your second listen, check out Locked On NBA. From the first jump ball of the play-in tournament to the last possession of the finals, Locked On experts take you deep inside the playoffs with insight and analysis affecting all 30 teams. James, have you seen the Chippendale Rescue Rangers movie?
I have. Have you seen the Chippendale Rescue Rangers Backlash?
There's a backlash.
Mm-hmm.
I think everybody's loving it. Did I
There
miss
is a
something?
backlash.
Over what?
There is a backlash.
It's near perfection.
Is the adult Peter Pan?
Well, I mean, they pushed a lot of things, which I was shocked that a Disney property will let them push that. The adult, adult Peter Pan. And by the way, did you catch that Dale is actually working at Chippendales?
Yeah.
Yeah, that they stuck that in there. So there's definitely some adult themes in it, but I thought it was amazing. James, what did you think?
It was good. It was
good.
Nostalgic. It was fun.
Ugly Sonic?
I'm really stoked about Kenobi coming out this week.
What about Ugly Sonic?
Kenobi and Top Gun.
Oh yeah. Both on Friday, right?
Yes.
I demand an Ugly Sonic Adult Swim TV show. I think it'll be a hit.
Yeah, I caught the ugly Sonic.
I every time he was on screen, he stole the show. I honestly think that. But yeah, and did you peep the blaster appearance?
Oh, absolutely.
All right, we'll let you go now before this show gets off the rails and we start diving into nerddom. That you save that for the meta with James Pledger and Katie Barber over there at the Star. But for James Pledger, I am Jeff Garcia. We're gonna put a lock on this episode of Locked On Spurs.